I am here to show you 12 more fun yet powerful builds. We got silver assassins, overpowered meta builds, and straight up legit tanks. Yes sir, we got it all here today. So let's jump right into these incredible builds. The first build on today's list, starring Inosuke. If you're looking for a fun challenge, then this build is for you, because it's somewhat of a melee glass cannon. If you don't already know about Inosuke, well, just know he is a goddamn maniac. He grew up in the mountains, raised by animals, which made him a very aggressive, savage fighter. Taking this maniac's personality into account, I believe that a bleed and poison combo would fit perfectly here. Oh hey, Ryan Reynolds back again. Here to tell you most of these builds were inspired by the community. Build ideas that y'all came up with in the Discord. So hats off to you fellas. The idea for this Inosuke build was brought in by DBZ, so shout out to him. Dual Scavenger's Curved Sword. Using the Poison Mist Ash of War on the main hand. One swing of this and your enemy be choking on your lethal fart bubble. Using this poison, combined with the blood loss from the vicious rigid teeth slicing up flesh, you can become very powerful using both Lord of Blood and Kindred of Rot exaltations. Then on the offhand, I'm using Braggart's Roar so I can switch over, pop that buff, reap the benefits, then switch back to the power stance. And of course, this curved sword moveset is famous for its spanker jump shots that easily activate successive attack buffs, like Rotten Winged Insignia and the Thorny Crack tier. Now I am also using the Winged Crystal tier, which allows me to light roll for 3 minutes. So you're leaping around like a wild animal, faster than the eye can see. We have occult affinity on both swords, giving me a solid balance of high attack power and bleed buildup. The first one with Poison Mist, and the second with Braggart's Roar, Rotten Winged Insignia, Blood Exaltation and Rot Exaltation, and Claw Talisman. The stat priorities here are Dexterity and Arcane. Moving forward, an Undead Elemental Hunter. As a hunter out in the wilderness, you need a full arsenal of attack options, wielding a Chad-tastic combination of weapons here that we'll be swapping back and forth. The main star of the show is a Fire Zweihander. The excellent moveset combined with the colossal poise damage make the Zweihander a totally viable greatsword, using an unconventional Ash of War, the Bloodhound Step. Now hear me out, I ain't no scrub, alright? I'll explain why I'm using Bloodhound Step in just a second. Our other weapon is a Cold Claymore with repeating thrust. You see, both of these weapons have unique thrusting pokes, either heavy attack pokes or poking out of a roll. So with my Bloodhound Step on the Zweihander, I can schmoove around the combat area, poking booty as I please. So here's the deal, we got Cold Infusion on the Claymore. This weapon art synergizes with the Spear Talisman as it will deal pierce damage. So as you can see, this build is a master of poking booty. We poking and thrusting all day, baby. And then Fire Affinity on the Zweihander. This way we are able to swap back and forth between Cold Frost and Fire damage, meaning you can reset the Frost and reproc it as you wish. Also, it gives us diversity with our damage types. We deal in physical, fire, and magic type damage. And nowadays your builds gotta have diversity. I mean, you gotta be politically correct out here or else we'll get canceled.
What in the hell's diversity?
But I believe diversity is an old wooden ship that was used during the Civil War era.
Spirit Talisman for all that booty poking we have on this build. Axe Talisman to buff the charged heavy attacks. They can be some lethal pokes. Green Turtle for stamina. And Great Jar Arsenal because these weapons are pretty heavy and I want decent armor as well. For the stats, we got 69 strength because...
Giggity, giggity, giggity.
And then throw the rest of your stats into dexterity and endurance. It took me long enough, but I have finally done it. I've created my own Elden Ring John Wick build.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
But do not write this off as just some cosplay build. Nah, we got some deep synergy and optimization here. So first off, we are using a unique moveset in order to tap into John's vicious fighting style. Fucking Taekwondo John Wick style, oh yeah. The best weapon for the job is the Spiked Kestis. Unique heavy attack combo and innate blood loss. Then using the Endure Ash of War, which gives you that ultra instinct so you can just ignore attacks for a moment, allowing you you to charge up your heavy attack combo and slap the enemy silly. You took my dog? Did you take my dog, bitch? That's what you get. Eat my dingleberries, bitch. To replicate John Wick's iconic trusty handgun, our best choice is the black bow. I'm using the fire explosion arrows and some bleed arrows. Not the greatest weapon in the game, but you can use it if you'd like. Though the cherry on top for this build is enhancing with Blood Flame. Now I know Blood Flame may seem a bit extra for the simple and smooth John Wick style, but listen man, he is so fast. He's on fire when he fighting. He blazing enemies with them fists, man, and nothing says I'm about to beat your f***ing ass, boy, better than lighting your fist on fire before a fight. If John Wick did this in a movie, we'd all lose our shit. Come on, admit it. Now that being said, I must also make clear that this build does not rely on the blood loss for its damage. Rockhard Radagon here is immune to bleed, and yet we still clap his cheeks off quite easily. Keen Spiked Kestis, so we can enhance it with Blood Flame, and the Black Bow, Axe Talisman, because the best tactic here is to pop Endure, then go for charged heavy attacks. These will knock their sweaty socks off. Blood Exaltation, Rotten Winged Insignia, and Arrow Sting Talisman. Focusing mainly on dexterity with a bit of strength, have my faith at 18, just so I can use Flame Grant Me Strength and Blood Flame spell. Got the Spiked Crack tier to buff heavy charged attacks, and Thorny Crack tier for successive hits. Look at this marvelous Royal Greatsword. I'm here to explain why you should be using this weapon more often. At first glance, you probably think, so he jumps up, he does a little spinny, little spins around and explodes a big frosty blast. Okay, nice, yep, nice, very good. But two things you might not know. Number one, the downward strike part of the weapon art, the plunging thrust attack, this deals pierce damage. This is considered pierce damage, which means you can use the spear counter talisman to buff this piercing thrust by 15%. Also, number two, the weapon art is buffed by the Spellblade set. Wearing Spellblade gives this attack even higher damage output. Though the attack has a somewhat slow animation, it has pretty far reach. You can leap a good distance and still connect. Plus, because you're spinning and schmoving around, typically you can dodge enemy attacks while performing this weapon art. So even though it's slow, it's still practical and viable in combat. This will be a strength intelligence build, focusing more on intelligence. So I got the Academy Glintstone Staff in my left hand casting sorceries. Spells like Glintstone Ice Crag, Ice Storm, Comet Shard, anything you want really. Just definitely use some cold spells for proccing Frost. You want the enemy's butthole frozen shut before plunging your Royal Greatsword deep inside it.
What?
Royal Greatsword and Academy Glintstone Staff, wearing the Spellblade armor set, Spear Counter Talisman for the pierce damage from the weapon art, Shard of Alexander, Graven Mass Talisman to buff your spells, and you can use the Magic Scorpion Charm if you'd like. Then of course, the Magic Crack tier. A solid split of strength and intelligence level, but focusing more on intelligence for your sorceries. Now, when I realized you can wield a crossbow alongside a shield, I knew I had to create a genuine tank build. And let me tell you, I have been missing out because these shields can get redunculous. The Spiked Palisade Shield is nasty. You can straight smash through enemies with incredibly strong hyper armor. This thing is ripped straight out of a medieval torture chamber. So of course, these spikes will inherently inflict blood loss, which means that you can infuse it with another status effect, like poison, so the shield itself can proc both bleed and poison at the same time. Next, the only crossbow that is not complete and utter dog water is the pulley crossbow. And again, it's only not dog shit when using bolts with status buildup like Frost. Then if you're using Frost bolts on the crossbow, this means this build now has blood loss, poison, and Frost, completing the trifecta of status effect cheesiness. If you want, you can carry a spear on the side. If the situation gets a little frisky and you need stronger close combat, you can whip out the spear and start poking away. Just like my father used to say to me, when in doubt, whip it out.
When in doubt, whip it out. When in doubt, whip it out. Whip it out.
Got the pulley crossbow, the spiked palisade shield as poison affinity, using the shield crash, Ash of War. Then for your side spear, I'm using the pike. Typically, the spear is quite underwhelming, but it is technically a strength weapon and is the longest spear by far. I mean, my god, man, I've never seen one that long before.
That's what she said.
Got the lethal combo of both Blood Exaltation and Rot Exaltations, Arrow Sting to buff our crossbow, and Shard of Alexander to buff the Shield Crash, Ash of War. The crossbow does not scale with any stat, it just is what it is, so the only scaling we have to worry about is for the shield, which will prioritize Strength and Arcane because it's poison affinity. Today, SpongeBob enters the ring. A demented psychotic sponge named Bob will wreak havoc across the lands between today. The bombastic barnacle great axe, the rusted anchor. You can use whatever Ash of War you'd like, but I'm using Waves of Darkness for a bit of crowd control. To complete our SpongeBob build, of course we need some deadly boobles. The first bubble spell launches one large magic bubble, and the second bubble spell launches several smaller magic bubbles. Insane diversity, man. Absolute insanity right there. The best combat strategy for these spells is to use them first to start the fight. Like, you can pop off 1 or 2 bubbles first, then run into the fight, because they are just so freaking slow, man. You can deadass launch the Great Oracle bubble, go take a break, go to the bathroom, look in the mirror, cry from disappointment, come back, and then finally it'll make contact with the enemy. Screw it, I'm using other spells also. I got Glintstone Ice Crag, Stars of Ruin, and the Magic Hammer Schlammer. Cold Rusted Anchor with Waves of Darkness. I'm using Academy Glintstone Staff, as this is the greatest staff to use at this level, only level 50 intelligence. Spear Talisman, because the Rusted Anchor deals pierce damage, which means the Spear Counter Talisman is perfect to pair with it. Got Godfrey's Icon and Graven Mass Talisman to buff the almighty Oracle Bubbles. Opaline Heart Tier and Magic Crack Tier, of course. For stats, we got a nice balance of 55 Strength and 50 Intelligence. If you thought the Cranial Vessel Candle Stand was just a gimmick weapon, maybe because the dude's actual f***ing head is stuck on top, then you would be, well, yeah, you would be right, it is a gimmick weapon. But that doesn't mean it's not extremely powerful. This is like the Chad version of Mogwin's Sacred Spear. Much less practical in combat, but just as powerful. The weapon art gives you decent hyper armor, but it's not a total AoE blast. It merely launches out several fireballs that may not hit the target. This build works by wearing heavy armor, buffing fire damage to the max, then blasting away, burning the enemy's nutter butters to a crisp. You sneak up on the enemy, nice and slow, you get yourself in perfect position.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
Oh yeah, right there. And skadoosh, yeah, baby, burn that booty. Considering we need a high faith level for this weapon anyways, I'm using Pyro Incantations for a ranged attack. I'm using the Giant's Flame spells. Not the most practical build, but certainly something you can challenge yourself and entertain yourself with for a while. Cranial Candle Stand and the Giant's Flame Seal, Shard of Alexander, Flock's Canvas Talisman, Fire Scorpion Charm, considering basically everything we're using is fire type damage, and Great Jar Arsenal, so we can wear the heaviest armor for increased poise. Of course, using the Flame Crack tier, at least 55 to 60 in both Strength and Faith would be optimal. The Dragon Halberd is the type of weapon that you take one look at it and think, oh yeah, this is the one. But then once you start to use it in combat, it's not super effective. Regardless, I will do my best with this weapon today. Presenting the Ice Knight. This magnificent weapon art enhances the halberd with 160 lightning damage and 80 frost buildup. The weapon itself does not have a very far reach. I swear, if this weapon had a longer reach, it'd be God tier. It'd be so damn good if this thing was longer. But unfortunately, it is very short and stubby.
Welcome to A Day in the Life of a Fat Activist.
We have a shield as well, which we can perform guard counter attacks with to mix things up. Hide behind your shield and poke away. Or hit him with the backup and Woo, got him. Using guard counters, plus the weapon art, which deals 33 stance damage, you end up breaking stance fairly often. And if you got the enemy inflicted with frost, you can deal a decent chunk of damage. As you can see, I'm here spanking Melania, and I'm not even using any blood loss. No sir, this is sheer Chadness coming through, slapping her around. Got the Dragon Halberd, and then I got the Mirror Shield, simply for the style, for that sleek, silver, drippy style. Shard of Alexander, Curved Sword Talisman for guard counters, Green Turtle, and Great Jar Arsenal to increase our weight load. For my stats, I got 66 strength because...
Execute Order 66.
And then a bit of dexterity. The Silver Assassin, another build inspired by Big Man Dinkledick from the Discord. This man was a trained killer and assassin who desired to elevate his combat abilities to new heights. In order to become stronger, he contacted the gods, and after striking a deal with the gods, he indeed became much more powerful, able to cast lightning from his fingertips and manipulate the steel weapons he held in his hands. This assassin went plus ultra, but he paid a heavy price. In exchange for godly power, the deities made him ugly. So ugly, even his wife of 25 years had divorced him. He forever had to hide his face in shame behind this steel cage of a hat, hoping that one day his wife would return and apologize for calling him ugly. The Urumi Dual Whip Power Stance. The Urumi has a uniquely awesome aesthetic plus a unique moveset, which we will capitalize on in this build. The Thunderbolt Ash of War fits here perfectly, giving us a ranged attack, so no matter where the enemy is, we can cheese them up real good. Something special about this build that we can't do with the typical whip is focusing on charged heavy attacks. The Urumi has a unique heavy, which can combo very nicely into its R1 light attack. We have a little bit of faith on this build because we want to enhance the whip with Electrify Armament for maximum damage and maximum drip. To be honest, dude, the strongest part of this build is the Ash of War Thunderbolt. This cheese master truly lives up to his name, able to pop off 3 to 5k damage very quickly. It's almost a guaranteed hit, and you can do it from a good distance away. Truly a cheese master. Our main hand Urumi is Keen Affinity with Thunderbolt, left hand using Lightning Hoslow's Pedal Whip with the Lightning Ram Ash of War, in case you want to get a little frisky, get a little crazy up in here.
The cops outside. Lock up the house.
And Gravelstone Seal. Axe Talisman to buff the heavy charged attacks from the unique Urumi. Claw Talisman because whips have them spectacular jump attacks. Shard of Alexander and the Green Turtle Talisman. We have Lightning Crack Tier and Spiked Crack Tier for the charged heavies. 80 Dexterity for sure, Dexterity is the priority, and then 25 to 30 Faith, giving us access to the Electrify Armament and Golden Vow. This is going to be the most meta build on today's list. I'm going ham with this one. Now, I've talked about the Knight Rider Glaive many times, but I haven't really showcased many builds for it. So today I present the Black Blaze. In PvP, fighting scrubber dubbers, or PvE against big boss fights, this setup can dominate any situation. Flame Art Affinity Knight Rider Glaive, with the greatest Ash of War for this weapon, the Flaming Strike. The Flaming Strike is a projectile attack, and it scales with your strength level. So we have a high strength, but we also have a decent faith level too. So feel free to take advantage of pyro incantations, like the Black Flame spells. If you don't love Black Flame spells, then there must be something wrong with you, man. You must be touching grass on a daily basis if you don't like Black Flame. I'm also using Black Blade because it's objectively the most badass spell in the game. Between the Knight Rider Flaming Strike and these pyro incantations, you are one powerful dude. The fires blazing in your heart will never cease until you melt through every enemy that walks the lands between. The Knight Rider Glaive I have is Flame Art Affinity. Now this will grant you the highest attack power, but only when you have a decent faith level, like at least 50 faith. Shard of Alexander, of course. Flox Canvas Talisman, Fire Scorpion Charm because we have a massive amount of fire damage here. I don't know if the Omen Smirk mask reminds me and looks more like my dead great-grandfather or my ex-girlfriend. I mean, they were both ugly as sin, so I can't tell. They both look pretty similar. So of course, we're using Flame Grant Me Strength buff and the Flame Crack tier. Strength and Faith are the stat priorities here. It would be ideal to have like max 80 Strength and 60 Faith. Then this build would be insane. There's a secret gospel of the Bible that has never been recovered, depicting stories of how Satan, the devil himself, truly enjoyed a good pizza party. This man Lucifer loved all that cheese and the pepperoni and the all of that. But one day, Satan had a bit of dispute with the chef over whether pineapple belongs on a pizza. Well, Satan was quite disturbed at the thought of pineapple ruining a good pizza. And so he exploded with rage over this argument, demanding that the chef be abolished, banished to live among the mortals for the rest of his days. This is that pizza baker today. This chef wields the Giza's wheel. When using the infamous pizza cutter, you are urged to use its weapon art, which is kinda disappointing in my opinion. The weapon art does not activate successive hit buffs, but the spinning from the charged heavy attacks do indeed gain the effects from successive hit buffs. So that is what we'll base this build around. We are going hard on them charged heavies. The weapon art is still decent for clearing out smaller Weenie Hut Juniors, but the charged heavies are definitely best on the big boys. If you notice, it's the one-handed moveset that is superior. Charged heavies are best when single-handing this weapon, so you might as well have a shield in the left hand, which actually works out very well because guard counters can easily break stance, which gives you the perfect opportunity for a free charged heavy attack. Got Giza's wheel and a simple medium shield in your left hand, Winged Insignia for successive attack buffs, Axe Talisman to boost the charged heavies, Blood Exaltation, and Erdtree Favor. We got both Spiked Crack tier and Thorny Crack tier for boosting charged heavies and successive hits. The stat priorities here are an even split right down the middle of strength and dexterity. An executioner from the north, who was banished from the Kaiden tribes due to his extreme brutality. It was even stated by other members of the Kaiden that as an executioner, he seemed to enjoy his job an unhealthy amount. A cold-hearted sociopath, willing to do whatever it takes to see his bloody mission through. The Executioner's Great Axe. This has the highest critical strike bonus of all Great Axes at 115. So the whole strategy here revolves around this uniquely high critical bonus. We want to break stance, then deliver incredibly powerful critical strikes. One of the easiest, most viable, and most satisfying ways to break stance is the Stamp Ash of War. You brace for attack, then slam your axe upwards, dealing heavy poison damage. It's fast and easy to pull off. To complete the build, you have two options here. The first, and the option that I recommend, is carrying a shield in your left hand, allowing you to perform guard counters. Guard counters are another great tactic for dealing poise damage and breaking stance. Or the other option is to wield a second Great Axe for giant spanker jump attacks. Great Omen Killer Cleaver on the side for its heinous, ferocious barbaric style, which you can add Cragblade to it, connecting you to the Oonga Boonga gods and boosting your big bunk powers. Whichever setup you'd prefer, a shield or a second Great Axe. A shout out to my fellow jabronis on Discord who helped out with this build. Got the cold infused Executioner's Great Axe. Definitely want that cold affinity because Proc and Frost will increase our damage by another fat 20%, making our critical strikes even more powerful. Then either a cold Omen Killer Cleaver with Cragblade or the Great Turtle Shell. The Turtle Shell has a decent guard boost and gives you increased stamina regeneration because turtles are famous for their incredible speed. I mean, it's obvious. Dagger Talisman, Claw Talisman, and finally you can use the Curved Sword Talisman if you are wielding a shield for guard counters. In your drink flask, you can use the Stone Barb tier. The thing is, Stone Barb tier is indeed very effective at breaking stance, but it only lasts for 30 seconds. So it's not very helpful in most situations, other than maybe against a boss fight. Then it can be good to use. You want to focus all your levels on strength. The Executioner's Great Axe is definitely a strength weapon, with a bit of intelligence because we have the Cold Affinity. Alrighty then, and if you want to engage with the community here, come check out our growing Discord. Connect with other players, talk about builds, partake in live events, all of that. The link for the Discord is down below. Thank you for watching, my fellow jabroni. I appreciate you.